Tried to tell you not to test my rage, cause you just a yellow belt and I'm a just guy staging. What's up, my wizards? Dev from SBMTG here with Julie today. I've got some thoughts on the newest Oath of the Gatewatch spoiler. I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. This is Ayli, Eternal Pilgrim right here. So far, the community at large is split on this. Reddit seems to like the card, but the comments section on Mythic Spoiler and the boards at MTG Salvation, there's definitely some people saying it's not great, which, you know, it's always going to be like that. Usually spikes, and I fancy myself a spike up to a point, but usually spikes will be like every card is bad until it's tested, and I get that frame of view, I get it. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the card definitely has applications beyond the obvious, you know, tiny leader and commander applications. I mean, the third ability on the card is worded in such a way that it's obvious that it should be used in commander. But, you know, I don't think it's going to be good in modern. Some people say that it is, but I'm not the expert on that. I really don't think so, though. And then obviously, you know, legacy, no, not at all. But as far as standard goes, which is sort of my specialty, I will say a few things. A lot of people have been looking at this sort of in a vacuum, you know, and just looking at the stats. And just saying that the abilities are just gravy and they don't really matter that much. But I can't really agree with that. Now, if you do just look at it on the stats alone, it's a good enough card in and of itself. You know, Legendary Rule is going to keep us from playing many copies of this. You know, 3 is the most you'll ever see, I would say. I don't think this is a 4 of legendary creature like Jace is, you know. That being said, the stats alone are really, really good. 2 mana for 2/3 Death Touch. 3 toughness Death Touch creatures. Very, very good against aggro. They often will survive combat with smaller creatures and obviously kill the creature they block. So that's pretty good. They can swing in fearlessly against a lot of creatures, so that's important too. But what everyone really cares about, definitely, and before I move on though, I do want to say that a 2 mana 2/3 Death Touch is pushed. That's pretty pushed. That's very good stats for that mana cost. But that being said, what everyone wants to talk about, I'm sure, are her second and third abilities. Now, I've said before that sacrificing creatures, I don't want to pay mana to have to do that, but 1 colorless mana is as little mana as you'll ever have to pay without it being free, and you don't have to worry about what mana should I leave open so I can tap this ability, and it's just colorless mana, it doesn't matter. So that's as cheap as it gets without being free, and that's pretty good. In aristocrat-style decks especially, which is what I'm sure everyone immediately thinks of when they see this card, in standard at least. And it could be potentially very, very good with cards like Zulaport Cutthroat, you know, especially with Zulaport Cutthroat. It sort of is another Nantuko Husk, but it's good because it's a Nantuko Husk you can play a turn earlier, which is going to actually be very important for some decks. You know, obviously Zulaport Cutthroat you play on your second turn, but you could play this on your third turn, possibly play a 1 mana guy, or this could be a 4-drop, you play it and something else, and that's actually really important for those decks, that, especially aristocrats and rally, that want to play, you know, more than one thing every turn. That's kind of important for those decks. And as far as the third ability goes, I don't think it's a very important ability. It's not going to happen all the time, and it's obviously a win more. If you're at 30 life, then you don't need to be blowing stuff away, but if you can blow stuff away at 30 life, then you very likely will win the game at that point. You know, not to mention that by the time you gain 30 life, you'll probably have enough mana to activate this ability twice. And yeah, you have to sacrifice guys, but in something like Aristocrats, which wants to sacrifice creatures, or Black-White Tokens, which is an important deck in the format right now. It's gaining prominence in Standard. And also Black-White aggro, not just Warriors, but there's a separate Black-White aggro deck, but yes, Warriors too in the format. And also, you know, sort of the Allies deck, even though she's not an ally, but I still think that it goes very well with the, you know, whenever you gain life, do a thing. That sort of, that theme. If you're playing an Abzan deck, you know, you play a Siege Rhino on turn 4, you gain 3. If they try to remove it, you sack it to this, you gain 5. So you're already 8 life up. You know, if you haven't taken any damage, you're just 2 life away from being able to just vindicate things, blow stuff away at will. And if you ever can, that's amazing, you know. And we have, I just built a life gain deck maybe a month ago, something like that, which gains a ton of life, like, pretty quickly, you know. We've got cards in this format like Feed the Clans, and better cards in this format like a Jutai's Command that has incidental life gain on it. So, I mean, I wouldn't count this card out. I think it's worth pointing out, too, its first ability has synergy with its third ability. That's very, very important. Another thing about its first and second abilities is that for both of them, you have to sacrifice a creature, obviously. This can, in some ways, be beneficial outside of just the Aristocrats sort of philosophy, you know. If they want to target any of your creatures with removal, you're just going to pay a mana, sacrifice them, and gain the life rather than them, you know, casting the removal on it. You still lose your creature, but in some situations it's good. Not only do you gain the life, but against like Silk Wrap, it keeps your creature from being exiled and other things that exile creatures. Aside from that, I don't really think that the card is going to like make a deck an important deck on its own, you know. There's not going to be an Ayli deck from what I can tell. But it does slot in well in so many things, and again, especially Aristocrats. You're supposed to look at the thing and think Aristocrats. And again, a lot of people have been looking at it in a vacuum, which I don't understand because the card does so many things for so many obvious decks that it's tuned to see play in Standard almost certainly. And if I had to grade the card right now, I'd probably give it a 7.5, you know, something like that. I want to give it a 7.5. It's probably more like a 7.25, honestly. But I'll say this: it will see play in Standard. In at least one deck, if not two. You know, my top 2 decks for this to see play in are Aristocrats and White-Black Tokens. I definitely think that this could possibly be in that deck. That's all I have to say, I think, about Ayli right now. I'm pretty sure I got it all out. Aristocrats, White-Black Tokens. First ability is okay. Second ability is maybe marginally important when it happens, but it won't happen every game, so don't get your hopes up. When it does happen, it's amazing. Aside from that, stats are good. 2 mana, 2/3 Death Touch. I can say it all day. That's just phenomenal stats. So the card will see some play. It's obviously pushed from what I can tell. So let me know how you feel about it, though. I'm really interested in it because the community's really, really split on this one. I'm Dev from SBMTG. If you enjoyed this mini analysis of this card, then just, you know, all you gotta do is hit the thumbs up button. That helps us tremendously. And sub if you're new. We've got a ton of deck techs on the channel. Check that out. And a bunch of spoilers coming up because spoiler season is officially starting very, very soon here. I'm Dev. That's Julie. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, my wizards.